I'm trying to do this from far enough away that you can kind of see what's going on. If I need to move the camera closer and or farther out, I'll do that as well. But earlier today I showed you this desk, which has a rough surface to begin with. This was the first furniture piece that I ever used DIY paint on, and it was before I knew what I was doing, and it was a mess, and it left a rough texture here. And instead of sanding it off, I wanted to see if I could decoupage this beautiful paper to it, and instead of having the mess of trying to decoupage with the Mod Podge wet, I'm trying the new technique of decoupaging with a hot iron. I don't have a craft iron, I have a regular iron. This is it. Pick it up without burning myself. And it is a Hamilton Beach iron from Walmart. I don't know what I paid for it, under 20 bucks. And it's never had water in it, so I don't have to worry about any steam coming out of it, because that's going to be an important thing. I have it set on the outer edge of silk and wool before cotton linen, which is the maximum, so I've got it on a little bit hotter than medium. And this paper is called, gosh, I didn't mean to throw away the wrapper, but it's like wrapping paper, but it's a little bit thicker. It's like a crafting type of wrapping paper that can be used as wrapping paper or decoupage paper or other types of craft paper. And I got it, I think, at Joann's or Michael's, and I got it, it's called Vintage Roses. And earlier today I talked about possibly centering this because it wasn't as wide as the desk, and then sort of distressing the edges, but that really wasn't what I wanted. So I cut the paper. On the edge of paper is always what's called a factory edge. This is the same thing as on boards and things like that. The factory edge is always completely straight, and you can trust it to be the guide for other things to be straight. So I lined the factory edge up with the top of my desk and with the side of my desk, and then I just pinched it along the side and made a crease and cut off to get my end, which won't be perfect, but I'm going to use a little bit of, I'll probably give this a day or two to dry, and I'll probably put something like DIY liquid patina over it to age it a little bit and to give it a little bit of protection. But before I do that, I'm going to come over just with some sandpaper around the edges and distress that a little bit. And on top of that, I'm going to have my husband cut me a piece of plexiglass. But anyways, I decided to go all the way to the edges. So I took another piece of the paper and I butted the factory edge of this up to the factory edge of this, and factory edge on that end down to this end, and creased it there, cut it off, and then did the same thing on this edge. And I left a little extra so I didn't have to sit here and stress about whether it was going to be perfect on this side, since I'm going to take sandpaper and sort of rough up the edges anyway. So we're going to see how this goes. And so the first coat on here, this is all I had today, was the Antiquing Mod Podge. Let me see if I can get a little closer and show you that. Regular would probably, hey Deanna, regular would probably be better, but this is the one I had with me, and it had some chunks, and I still used it anyway and got rid of them best I could. But now for the part that's supposed to be so cool and not have all the mess of regular decoupaging, you're going to want to butt it up with the factory edge of your desk and the factory edge of your paper back here. See if I can do this with my iron in the way. And also butt up the factory edges here on the right hand side. So it should be completely square there on both of these, but life happens, and human beings build these desks and things like that, and they get moved a lot. So that right there looks perfect to me on this end. So the desk is completely dry of the Mod Podge now. Let me move that out, and I'm just going to get started on this edge so it will hold on to that for me in the future. And let's see if this works. So now I'm just taking the iron and ironing it. What the iron does is reactivate the decoupage underneath the paper and seal it to it without you ever having to mess with it while it was wet. So what I'm hoping is that it didn't make a whole lot of difference that that my table was rough, because I was wanting it to look somewhat distressed anyway. If that does make a difference later on, then we will have learned a lesson on that together. It may be, I'm going to turn my iron down, it's still in the silk and wool, but in the middle of that instead of at the edge of it. I feel like it's dragging a little bit. I can see a little bit of shiny coming up in the paper, and I'm not going over this straight edge all the way up to that, because I'm going to wait till I have my other piece butted up to it before I try to get that seam. Now I'm just straightening here to make sure my seam is going to stay straight on the edge. Come out at a diagonal there, and let's just let her rip. This is a really, really cute way to get a pattern on something fast. And it is, can y'all see there? I'm not able to pick this up. It's already glued down. It's already glued down on those edges just with this iron. How cool is that? How much easier is that than trying to deal with all that wet Mod Podge? Now I'm going to kind of go out and trying to press it out at an angle to not get wrinkles on here. Doing a large piece like this is harder than it would be doing a smaller piece. But I really wanted to do this large piece. Right now I'm just going over it to try to get a good first seal and try to get any larger air bumps and things like that out so that it'll be as straight as we can get it. And this is making this into a vintage looking piece pretty quick like, which is too dang cool. This is, I wanted to learn this technique, and I think I'll use this technique the most with like doing dressers and things like that. You know how if you're redoing a dresser, you can always just do the outside of it and paint it and make it look really cool. But it would, the people who go one step further and who like put paper on the outside of the drawer edges, or who line the inside of the drawers and do it with the beautiful papers and things like that, that's what can make a piece really, really special. And knowing this technique and being able to use this iron and job it up into the corners of those dresser drawers is going to make that ideal. This is just blowing me away. I'm going to go really, really good on my edges, but they're already down. I mean, there's nothing to pick up here. This paper is now part of this desk. And that took no time at all. Look at it. I mean, it's going to really look like a vintage piece. This is probably one of my proudest moments to date. Something turned out easy. Okay. Now this is going to be the slightly tricky part. And here's one, hey Candy, and there's one other thing about this. If you're doing wallpaper or doing paper projects like this, you usually want to try to match up the pattern. And you would sort of pull your paper or wallpaper back and forth on here to where you can find where they made the cut at in the middle of this pattern and match it up, and that way you can never see where the seam was. Ideally, that's the situation. And a lot of times you end up losing a foot or more of paper in the beginning before you put it down and wasting that, but it makes your project look so much better. Well, I fiddle-farted with this until I couldn't fiddle-fart no more with trying to figure out how to match up that pattern, and I couldn't, there was no matching it. So we're just going to butt up the seams and call it a day. Because it just was not printed in such a fashion that as if it were wallpaper to where it would match up that way. And that's just part of the paper, because if it would have, I would have been glad to have wasted a foot of paper to butt that up. But I've got this seam. I'm going to try to pull you a little closer and tilt you down. There we go. See, I've got this seam butted up best I can butt it up. I can't butt the flowers up because it's just not made that way. And I really don't believe anybody but me and you will know the difference anyway. I'm leaving a tad extra on that end, and I've got a tad extra coming out on the other end, and that's going to be taken care of with the sandpaper later anyway. So now I'm good in getting the edges of the first piece and button them up with the second piece, and I'm going to do that kind of all the way down and then come back and finish it. Can't even tell where my seam's at right there. There it is. And then come back and get the edge. This is so quick and easy. This is just unbelievable. I really expected to have to try to figure out a better way and troubleshoot and all that kind of stuff, and it's just not necessary. This is a completely different desk than I had on, and there's no sticky on the back of this paper. There was nothing put back on here at all, so that will just come right off. I won't have to worry about it messing with anything. Going real good around the edge there. Now coming on, just get over the whole thing. And I'm not having to go over it no bunch of times. I am doing that, you know, partially for this demonstration. But that absolutely was not necessary. Do y'all want me to grab a piece of sandpaper and show you what I'm talking about sanding off those edges, or do you already know how to do that? I'm going to make sure these edges are good and perfectly straight. When I was putting the Mod Podge on here earlier, I was paid extra attention to making sure that I got plenty of it all the way to the edge of the, thank you Edna, all the way to the edge of the top of the paper. I mean of the table, so that there wouldn't be an area here to lift off later. So now I'm doing nothing but going back over it because I can't believe how easy this was. And just in case there's something I might be missing, I'm going to go over it one more time. I kind of like, because this has a bit of a vintage pattern on it, I kind of like that the table had a little bit of a rough texture under there. I was hoping that the Mod Podge itself would even that out some, and I'm sure that it did, but because I really wanted the vintage look to this, I wanted it to have a little bit of a texture under here to look like old wallpaper, and to me it does. I missed everything, but if I gather Mod Podge, then iron it. Yes, that's exactly right, Kimberly. You can catch the replay later, but I'll do a quick recap over it. Take whatever piece you're going to do and put Mod Podge all over it. Just paint it on. Not real thick, not real thin, but, you know, a decent coat on it, and then let it completely dry. Just go off and do something else. Then get your paper, wrapping paper, craft paper, scrapbook paper, whatever kind of paper you're going to use, and cut it out to close to size of what your surface is going to be. Get a craft iron, or let's see if I can get this up close enough. I've just got it on that medium setting right there, and there's never been any water in here. This was like a $10 or $12 iron, something like that, from Walmart, that I bought just for doing this kind of stuff, because I want to do this to the insides, and this is the coolest idea, Kimberly. And there's no Mod Podge all over the place. My paper's not wrinkled up. There's just no mess. I'm just blown away by how easy this is. And it's done. I mean, it's not, you can see here from the edge, it's glued on there. And there's no messy nothing everywhere. This is probably the coolest thing I've learned so far this year. Okay, I'm going to sit this on the floor. And you know what? I'm going to grab a piece of sandpaper and show y'all what I'm going to do to the edges. I didn't intend on showing y'all this part right now, so sorry about that. And hopefully this will work, because this is just a piece of sandpaper that I could grab. Yeah, it's just a regular iron. That's just let me show you. I picked this up at Walmart. So what it is you don't want any steam to come out of it. So if you're going to use your regular household iron, just make sure that there's absolutely no water in it. And it didn't leave, I mean, here's the bottom of the iron. It didn't leave any kind of residue on it or anything. Let's see, hopefully this is a rough enough sandpaper. This is a pretty wore out piece. But this is sort of just all I'm going to do for the edges here. Is use sandpaper to cut them. How cool is that? And there are some beautiful papers at this time of the year too. Mother's Day is a good time of the year to get pretty papers. Boom. And it's on there. I mean, it's on there. That's just too dang cool. I know, I'm in love too. It's just, that was just too dang easy. I mean, it totally just changed the whole look of this desk. And what did that take me, like 7 or 8 minutes? And like I said, now I will, yeah, I'm going to either Mod Podge it on top, or I have that antiquing Mod Podge, since I am wanting it to look older, but it was all clumpy and lumpy and I'm down at the end of it. So I'll either bring some other regular Mod Podge back up here, or I'll probably just go over it with like DIY liquid patina, because I have some of it down the hall already, and just put that over it. But I think this paper is so pretty, I'm probably going to have my, to seal it. Because you wouldn't want to, it's still just paper on top, and you wouldn't want to like put a wet glass of water or something on here and have it raise up your paper. So definitely you could use Big Top, or Gator Hide would be a really good one from Dixie Belle, the Dixie Belle Gator Hide, for sealing the top and making it waterproof, or whatever kind you have. I'll probably put a coat of DIY liquid patina on here first, and then a coat of Gator Hide on top of that, just to give me some extra protection. But I also already asked my husband this morning if he would cut me a piece of plexiglass to go on here. That way I could stick pretty pictures and stuff underneath it that of my grandkids and stuff like that too. But anyhow, yeah, all it is underneath is, it was a painted piece of furniture that I was never happy with. I was just learning to use this paint whenever I painted it, and I didn't like the way it came out. So I didn't sand it. I didn't do anything to prep it except for put Mod Podge all over it and then let the Mod Podge dry. It was completely dry whenever I came in and cut the paper. And then whenever you go on it with the medium heat iron, it just reactivates the Mod Podge underneath and causes your paper to stick. It's just too dang cool. But yep, it is Mod Podge, Julie, it is Mod Podge underneath. And then you would just seal it as if you would any other you know, decoupage project. So I'm really, really pleased with how this came out, and we'll definitely do more projects like this in the future. I can't wait until I do. Yeah, I'll probably use the DIY liquid patina on top because I have some down the hall. This is what I used first, and that's the antiquing matte Mod Podge, and I only use that because that's the one I had here. I got this at Hobby Lobby because I thought it was a cool find, but now I've about used it all up and it was chunky and lumpy and all of that, so I don't want to put it on top and chance ruining it now that I think the paper's so pretty. Hey Kim, yeah, I know, it was so easy. If y'all watch that, if not, go back to the replay. I mean, the whole thing wasn't just but a couple of minutes, and it's on there. I mean, I'll go through with my sander here and get these very edges because I went with a little bit extra so all my edges would look the same, and I'm just cutting them off with sandpaper. But that definitely would, I could see my whole dining table done like this, and then like put a light colored, like a creamy white leg on it. That would be too cool. My husband would die because he likes wood, but it could happen. Anyway, so I just butted the paper up here, match the pattern if you're using something like a wallpaper. And you're welcome, Jody. I'm so glad that y'all caught it, and I'm so glad that it worked out. You know, it was really cool and really easy, and only took a couple of minutes. Mod Podge on first, let it dry, cut your paper, get your iron medium setting, iron it on there, and it's done. So thank y'all for joining me. That was a whole lot of fun. And if you need to go back to the beginning, it'll be on the replay, and you can catch it there. But there really wasn't much to it, and I will. Like I said, I'm going to go over this with some DIY liquid patina probably before I leave today. And then when we come in next week, we'll decide, you know, what to do it from there. You're very welcome. Bye.